Hello Simmers, welcome to my channel Simsational Builds. In case you don't know, my name is Deb and thanks for joining me today for another tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about roofing and all that comes with it. Now I know this is one of my most requested tutorials and I do apologize it's taken me so long, but here we have in front of us three different options, three different styles of homes that I'll be showing you how to do the roof with, and just a few little tips and tricks that'll help you with anything else you might want to build as well. Now I apologize in advance if I get any terminology wrong. At the end of the day, I'm not an architect, I am a Sims builder, so I sort of just go with what I can see and what looks the best as well. So first off, when we're talking about roofs, it's really important to keep in mind that the style of roof that you want has to suit the style of home that you're building. And something that I've said in one of my previous tutorials, which is how to build off a floor plan, is essentially if you're just learning, if you've got no idea what you're doing, or maybe what you're building just isn't turning out the way that you're intending it to, a really good way to start is by actually going off an existing floor plan. Now I'll put the link for that particular tutorial up the top here for you, but there are a number of different websites available that have, you know, floor plans available to purchase actually in real life. One of those is, for example, houseplans.net, which I've got up on my screen now. And for example, on a website like this, you can actually search by a style of home and it'll give you a whole bunch of different options that you can actually go by the floor plan, look it up, see if the floor plan suits you and go from there. Now these floor plans don't often have the roof or the top view of the plan, so you can't go off it exactly, but it does often give you different views around the home, so that should at least help you out. So for example, the one that I have up on the screen, we've got two of those, you know, half gable style roofs as well as the hipped roof for the majority of the home. You've got another little one here at the back, and this style, this angled roof, which is called the half gable, that is really typical of the mid-century style. So for example, if you just Google mid-century modern homes, again, these angled roofs sort of come up everywhere. So that's why it's really important to sort of do a little bit of your research prior to actually building a home, because if we try to do a mid-century home with a more traditional style or a hipped roof, it just wouldn't look right and it wouldn't end up looking like a mid-century modern home. So starting off with this one, and like I said, if we're going to do the angled one, there's a couple of ways that you can do it. You can have the two angles going away from each other or towards one another. What I'm going to do is have them going away from each other for this particular one. So these floor plans essentially are just pretty much empty shells. It's just to give you an idea of what we can do with these types of builds. So what I'm going to start with is just getting the style of roof that I want, filling up the space, filling up the length. Now, as you can see, when we put it down, this is much too high of an incline. So I'm going to use this arrow up the top here when I select the roof to lower it. We can always adjust it. Now, the first little tip that I'm going to give you, which I find really important, is instead of going through and reselecting the same style of roof and then going through the process all over again, is to instead start copying and pasting your roofs. Now this is a little copy button here, and that will bring up the exact same size and inclination of the original one that we did. And one of the most important things when it comes to roofing is to make sure, or try as best as you can, to keep the inclination all the same, especially if it's on the single level. When we start going to an upper level and a lower level, for example, upper level, lower level here, it can be a little bit more forgiving, but if you're working on one level, they all need to be the same height. Now, even here, as you can see, once I've done the second one, it is still a little bit high for my liking. Now, the best way for me to do it now that I've already placed it, instead of altering this and then going back and changing, putting a new roof down, is I'm going to pay attention to how many sort of levels down I'm going. So when you start to move it like this, you can see it automatically sort of jumps up to whatever level. So I went down from where my original one was here, I went down one level or one click or one push down. And on this side here, I'm going to go down the exact same level, just one. And now I've got, again, the same inclination on both of those. So from the front, it starts to look more like this. Now I've got this extra random little bit that's sticking out here. I'm going to, again, copy and paste it. It doesn't matter that it's too big. You just place it down where you can, and then using your arrows, pull it to the correct length and width that it needs to be. So as you can see here, we've already got a pretty good looking mid-century modern build. Now, if you wanted to put something at the front here, for this particular style of roofing and this particular style of build, instead of using the roof to form like an awning or a porch veranda, I'm just going to do an open style porch, I suppose you could call it. And the way that I'll do that is actually using a fence. Now, there's a little base game fence here called Smooth Keeper. I like to use white. And just going down to the level of your roofing here, I'm actually just going to build myself a little square. You can go around and follow where the walls are as well, and what that will do is it will cover it as such. We're going to remove that, but before I do that, I'm going to just add some more detailing. Now, you can just do some straight lines like this. You can make them go directly across as such. Some people like doing little sort of angled sections as so. Really, the design is up to you at the end of the day. And once that section's finished, you just use your sledgehammer tool here and just remove the solid floored sections in between. Careful not to actually hit the fence line. And as such, now you've got a pretty little covered section here in front of your front door. Finish that off with a column here. So what we have here is a almost done mid-century modern house with the little cover in front of the front door, and you know, the roof in the correct style, but we're not quite done yet. You need to keep in mind also, you know, little features, little details that make a house a home and make a style correctly styled. Now, one of the things that mid-century modern houses have in this sort of section here where the gable roof meets the incline are little windows at the top. So I'm just going to pop these base game windows there. You could add more at the back essentially if you wanted to. You could add more on this side of the home, but assuming that this is going to be a main living area, you can then have those windows up the top there so that the light can, you know, shine up through there. Now, the only problem is when we put down a roof going down to what would be inside the home, you can see here that we don't have that section there because the ceiling is flat. Now, one way to get away from that is when you have your roof up like this, if you up here put your walls down, completely down like this, it'll give you a view of the ceiling. You can see those windows on the side there. Now, this will go by room, so if you had your indoor sections separated a little bit more, it would only remove the roof from that section or the ceiling from that section. But just using the sledgehammer tool, I'm going to go and remove the ceiling for this whole main center area, assuming that that's going to be just like a main living area. And then if I go downstairs, back again, put my walls up, put my ceiling up, and here we can see that now we have this main big living area with an angled roof and some windows through the top there. Not forgetting to paint the sides of the roof as well. I'm just going to match up what we have here. And then we've got our roof trims. Now you can choose whatever you like best, again, depending on the style of build that you're choosing. This flatter one here, square roof trim, will match what I'm doing with this particular roof. And of course, you can't forget your roof pattern as well. And even this will depend on what style of home you're actually using. Something like this can probably use this simple sheet metal roof. Otherwise, I might use something like this one here. So that is a really basic start to our roofing tutorial. Now, going along here to something a little bit more advanced. Now, this one is probably more of a pushing a modern farmhouse style or just a modern style build. These ones here tend to have a bit of a mixture of gabled and hipped roofs. So I'm going to do a bit of both in here and show you what I will do for not only the top level but also the ground level as well as the first floor there. So usually when we have any sections that protrude out, starting with the top level here, what I would do here is put a gabled roof. Now, similar to what I did the first time, I'm going to fill up my space that I need for this particular style of roof, and I'm going to get it to the right height that I need. Again, I prefer going lower rather than higher because when we start filling up spaces, it starts to look a little bit funny. So this section here, we've got this little gable here. Now for the rest of it, we could just put a hipped roof, which we're going to for part of it, but over this section here where I have my balcony, I'm going to put another gabled roof. So just like before, instead of putting a new roof down, I'm going to copy what I originally have, and I'm going to drag this out to form a roof over the top of my balcony. Now with the space in between, I don't want to put another gabled roof. You could if you wanted to, but I would actually prefer to put the hipped roof. So with this one here, because it's a little bit funny, what you essentially need to do is go from edge to edge. So go right across. You don't want to just fill up space. You want to fill up the entire roof there to there. And obviously that inclination is completely different to what I have here. With this one here, we can't go by, pulling up or down how many levels because it's not quite going to match up. What we're going to do is we're actually going to pull it down until it's the exact same inclination as what I already have here. So I'm going to pull it down. So you see here, it's still a little bit too high. I think one more will do it. And there, you can see how it completely blends in to the roof that I've already got. So here, you see that one's coming out there. You can leave it. I actually might cut that down completely so that the back of it is more like this. Now, what I do end up with is this little funny bit sticking out here. What I'm going to do is you can pull these closer to reduce your overhang as such, but I actually quite like the overhang, so I'm going to leave that out and select this one and pull the overhang out to match. And now this is completely seamless here, all around. I might actually even pull this one out to have a matching little cover over that balcony at the back as well. So from the front, we've already got a really nice roof line. It's not too high there either, and it does suit the style of the build as well. And that already is starting to look pretty good. Now, what are we going to do here? There are two things that you could do. You can just use a half gabled roof, which is the angled one. And what I'm going to do, instead of copying, pasting, matching angles or anything like that, because I'm on a second level, it is a little bit more forgiving, and I'm just going to pull it down to what I think works best. Now, you can just have it angled down like that if you want. We can put this down a little bit. Now, if we want to have the overhang over the front, but we want to reduce it at the back, all you need to do is, while you're clicking and pulling the arrows, you hold down your shift key. And when you hold down your shift key, it will allow you to pull down one side rather than both. So you can just have it like so. I personally don't actually want it hanging over the side like this, just on an angle. I actually want it to finish on more of a more of a hipped style. And the way to do that, I'm just going to pull this across for a moment, is actually by selecting this one here. This is your half hipped roof. Now putting the flat side, or the gabled side, next to the actual wall itself, I'm going to firstly flatten it out a bit. I want it to end up being the same as this one, but I'll play with that a little bit later. And drag this across until you see here we've got this line forms a straight angle up to the wall. I'll pull that down now, and I'll try and match it up with the same incline as this one here. And as you can see, I've actually managed to get that one first try, so they're the exact same incline. I'm going to pull my overhang out a little bit to match here, so that's all one piece. Now, to get this to line up correctly, pulling this across isn't quite going to work. We have to also make sure to remove that overhang completely so that it lines up. And now you can see that this line forms that perfect line there, and then it continues on with this roof. This section, this other half, is going to be hidden by this half gabled. I hope that makes sense. And what it will do here, we can't just pull this across because we're going to end up with a little gap here. One of two things you can do. You can simply just pull that back, and theoretically it will remove it from the inside, seeing that that is a closed space. However, that can be glitchy sometimes, and what I prefer to do instead of that, I'll have it at the level where this wall finishes, copy it here, fill the space. Sorry, that needs to get pulled back down. And now this one finishes at the wall, this one also finishes at the wall, and because I've copied and pasted, they're both at the exact same angle, and they finish exactly where I want them to as well. So that ends up looking a lot neater to me personally than just having that angled or gabled roof right to the edge. One minor problem that we have here is that you have this roof looking a little bit funny there and it exposed on this one side. You will find that fences won't actually cover up any roof lines. So what I find that I do here is actually just get a half wall, just get the correct height. You might need to play with it a little bit and just go up to either where you need it to or right up to the edge. That one's a little bit low, as so. And that will just cover up that space. You can then match up the wall to other walls, match up the top of it as well, so that it all suits and looks the same there, and therefore it looks much neater than it would otherwise. And you still have that nice little overhang here for your front door also. We have a random little bit on the side here, and what I might do with this one here, again copying and pasting, I'm going to select my half-hipped roof here, put it up the top, alter it how I need to, so it's all going to be the same, and therefore, you know, it matches up really nicely, and it can be done quite quickly once you get the hang of it. Pull that one up to the other side, and there we have the roofing for this particular house here. So again, making sure we don't forget about the, you know, little details like filling in the roof space, getting the roof trim correct. This one here, this beveled one, is actually one of my favorites, and I might make it black for this particular build, just to try and do this as quickly as possible for you. That covers that. And in terms of the roof covering, funnily enough, I think this sheet metal roof might match the best as well. And you can obviously do a combination depending on your build and depending what suits. So there we have more of a modern contemporary farmhouse style if you like. Also not forgetting your roof sculptures. Now they just add an element of realism to the build, I feel. So it's important also if you have, say, a chimney, for example, a fireplace, so that you add a chimney, for example. Again, just try and match up the style of your house. This one here is probably a good example. Again, I'm going to use the black. And personally, I try and match up where the actual fireplace would be. But, you know, again, we are in The Sims and realism isn't everything. So I'm just going to pop that there because to me it looks nice where it is. And I personally really like the little satellite dish as well from Stranger Things. Sorry, not Stranger Things. From Strangerville. And especially, say, let's pop it over here. Again, just adding a little point of realism to the build. Now what we're going to find here, especially if we go down, is that you actually aren't going to be able to see underneath where our overhang is, or where our little balcony roofing is. There's actually no ceiling there, and it looks a little bit strange here. You can see a little bit more clearly where the front door is. There's no ceiling there, and it's probably something that you won't even notice unless you do get close up or you just start taking, you know, photos and things like that. But it does look a little bit funny, and sometimes even I forget to do it. So what you need to do in this instance is just put your walls down when you're on the roof level, and see here, there you can see quite clearly that there's no ceiling or covering there. So just choosing this flat square in the build floor section, and I'm simply going to fill this space up where the actual roof line is. This won't affect or shouldn't affect your roof in any way. And you can see it's the same thing at the back here. Cover that up. And going down a level, same thing with the front door. I'm just going to pop that there so that it's at the same level. And now when I go into it, I now have ceilings on both of those. Now you may notice that now that we've added the ceiling, we've got this funny little white section here where the ceiling sort of can be seen from the side. The way to mask that is going here to your exterior trims. Instead of using this top section, which is the one that automatically opens, you're going to go into this one here, which is usually used when it's a double-story house and you want to put a detail in between the two stories, like this for example. But you can also use it for your roof trims also. something like this one here is probably the one I use the most. I try and match up the color of, you know, the walls or the build that I'm using. And as you can see here, just by doing that, it just tidies it up really nicely. I'm going to do the same thing here. And there you have it. And these small details at the end of the day are what really make or break a build and start making it look less like a game and more like real life, essentially. So lastly here we have our more complex Victorian style or olden style build. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, but don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on part 2, where we go over the more antique style home, the more Victorian style home, and I'll show you some more advanced tips and tricks as well. Don't forget to give me a like if you did like the video, and as always, if you have any suggestions or requests for any future tutorials, please let me know in the comments below. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye!